this video, we're going to explore the skill we use to fundamentally change the way we communicate with the different parts of our personality internally. This skill is designed to use a combination of evidence-based approaches wrapped up in a simple narrative that's intended to provide the opportunity to unblend from a part that's trying to take us in a direction that does not line up with who we want to be. When practiced consistently and effectively, this skill not only helps us to manage behavioural responses, it also provides the language we need to remove the rigidity to this response every single time, removing the burden of responsibility that the part's probably been holding on to for an extremely long time. So today, let's have a conversation about how we use the skill that we call the RAAVEN. In its basic format, the RAAVEN skill was put together so we can use the skills of DBT integrated with the theories of schema therapy to change the way we communicate with the many different parts of our own unique personality system. Normally, this internal narrative can take on a very rigid and critical perspective, so the RAAVEN skill offers the possibility of turning this into a more compassionate, caring and validating intrapersonal communication style. This new way of speaking to ourselves, and therefore our parts, can feel a little awkward and mechanical at first. At the same time, when done consistently, it often provokes some significant behaviour changes. The primary focus of the RAAVEN skill is to provide the narrative we need to re-educate the parts of our personality that have been moved to take action by the active and dominant schema in our system. These parts are probably just trying to get through the situation, one that's seen as being dangerous, by using the modes of behaviour they think are necessary to survive at that time. When our parts are activated, it's usually with a single purpose in mind. At the time of their original creation, every single part of our personality had a specific job to do. For example, it's often the case that the emotional child parts of our personality are stuck in a time when their job was definitely needed. Unfortunately, they actually don't realise that they no longer need to do the things they do because that was then and this is now, and we're not in those dangerous situations anymore. Following the steps of the RAAVEN skill and completing the worksheet associated with it provides us with the narrative we use to re-educate these parts of our personality, bringing them into the here and now and releasing the burden of responsibility being held to protect. When practiced on a regular basis, this new internal narrative will allow the part to feel heard and understood. This can cause it to let go of the desire to protect the vulnerable child with such an all or nothing purpose, creating the possibility of finally living the life we want to live, stepping into the new world of possibility that we've now created. In the PDF at the bottom of the page that's connected to this particular video, you'll find a basic rundown of how we use the RAAVEN skill effectively. Keep in mind that making this a usable skill means turning it into a short and to the point internal narrative that, when practiced on a regular basis using planning ahead to build mastery, will kick into gear when the part gets activated in what are perceived as emotionally difficult situations. In my one-on-one work, I often find when people first start using this particular skill, they tend to overdo it with words that complicate the entire process. If you find that your RAAVEN skill is taking a lot of words to explain and you're using additional paper to justify what's going on in your system, save this type of exploration for your journaling. This isn't what the RAAVEN skill is for. Journaling is an essential part of building and understanding, then appreciating and actually being grateful for why parts do what they do. This is really important to have in place before you start to complete the RAAVEN worksheet. Mindful journaling is a specific thing to do that will help you to build this knowledge, so look out for the video on mindful journaling to help you develop this skill too. Next, we're going to go through the steps of the skill itself, and once you're familiar with them, try to incorporate this way of speaking to your parts into your daily practice. This is going to be difficult to do at first. It may feel a little bit strange and a little mechanical or clunky. But like anything worth doing, with practice, it will become easier to do. Over time, you will begin to experience the benefits of this skill, in particular when it comes to the area of unconditional self-acceptance. The narrative will shift from being clunky and mechanical to feeling natural and organic, like you've always talked to yourself in this way. The first step in this process is to recognize and acknowledge that there is a thought, a feeling, or a physical sensation like an urge to do something that you're experiencing as a result of the situation you're currently in. For some people, this is an easy thing to do. For others, it can be challenging. If you've been developing your mindfulness practice as part of your recovery lifestyle, this will probably be an easier thing for you to identify, as it's part of the observing phase of the stop skill. Observing and describing the part that's present in our system is the essence of unblending. It allows us to diffuse from the thoughts and feelings we're experiencing so we can identify and name them simply as parts of our personality, non-judgmentally observing and describing what's happening in our own unique internal world. Remember, if this emotional experience becomes too overwhelming for you, if it's not the right time or place to do this type of work, it's okay to take a step back, go to your safe place, practice mindful breathing, and try again another time. Have the list you created for the accept skill at hand so you have an idea of how you can distract and avoid in a healthy way. If it's the right time and place and you do feel confident and safe to do the work, go ahead and name the part of your personality non-judgmentally that's present in your thoughts at this particular time. Acknowledge the emotion this part is holding on to by saying out loud, "I'm noticing there's a part of me that's..." It can also be helpful to look at the journal you completed earlier to get a perspective from the point of view that this part has. This will assist you in getting to know this part of your personality and increase your chances of unblending from it when it tries to, metaphorically speaking, take control of your bus. Once we've recognized and acknowledged the thought, feeling or emotion and use this to non-judgmentally label the part of our personality attached to this internal experience, the next step is to let it know that we appreciate why the part does what it does. This will lead us toward the unconditional acceptance of this part and its behaviour, which is an essential piece of the long-term process, as we have to work from a space of no bad parts. It's important to understand that this is not about the part being right or wrong, good or bad, just simply that it's there. It's not possible to get rid of this part, as it's an important part of our personality system, as are each and every one of our parts. It's simply about understanding the intent behind the part's behaviour. What is its purpose in our system, and why does it react the way it reacts? Building this appreciation is done away from using the RAAVEN skill in the moment. Curiosity and compassion are absolutely key. Taking the time to mindfully journal from the part's perspective gives us the ability to build this appreciation and at times a gratitude for its presence within our personality system. At the time this part was created, it must have served a purpose. The behaviour it used to cope with the feeling was an appropriate behaviour at some point in the past. See if you can empathise with why the part behaves this way when you're emotionally activated. Ask yourself, what is it that this part is trying to protect me from? Sit with the behaviour and see if it's connected to behaviours from the past. Empathise with the child at that time, trying to deal with the situation in the only way they knew how, in a space that was probably filled with fear. Bring a compassionate conversation to your system so you can authentically understand the purpose of this part. The next step is probably the most important part of this process, simply because it's the one that almost always is lacking. Learning the skill of self-validation is a key component to developing a healthy relationship with the many different parts of our personality system and ultimately getting comfortable within our own skin. Self-validation takes us into and from our capability to practice the skills of self-empathy and self-compassion, both of which are also essential in the journey towards unconditional self-acceptance. Usually, without self-validation, we obsessively seek our validation from others externally. This is one of the ways we try to fill an internal void with external resources, otherwise known as the pig. And when we do not receive the external validation that we're looking for, it leaves us feeling empty, worthless, helpless, or unlovable in some particular way. Validation does not mean we praise the part for the behaviour that we're trying to work with or change. It simply means we understand why the part wants to behave this way, why it feels the way that it does, and how it came to the point in time where it believed that this is the only option we have to deal with the situation that we're facing. Sometimes self-validation can be as simple as saying, "I completely understand why you feel the way you do," and other times it can be a little more complex. Remember, the validation has to come from a place of sincerity and authenticity as a result of using our journals to build compassion, empathy, and understanding for why this part is doing what it does. A lack of authenticity will lead to our system feeling manipulated, which will often cause an issue with self-trust. So please don't skip over this practice or use the words to tick the proverbial box of completion. This will only keep you stuck in your current way of doing things if you do. Whichever language you find that works for you when it comes to self-validation, start by letting the part you're working with know that you understand why it feels the way that it does, given the things that it's experienced and the tools we previously had at our disposal. Then see where this leads you in your internal world. Once you believe that the self-validation process is complete, you're going to get a sense that the part that you're working with feels safe and accepted within your system. The next steps in the process is to educate the part about the current situation. We do this by literally speaking directly to the part of our personality, either in our thoughts or out loud. Either way works. It's about figuring out which way works for you. Educate the part about the situation you're in. Let it know how you're aware of the problems from the past, but you're older now. Let it know that you have the skills you have now to deal with the situation, and if necessary, list them out so there is complete awareness within your system for what you can actually do. Often the parts of our personality will be trapped in an emotional time from our past, so spending some time letting them know where you are now, how we're not in any danger at this particular point in time, can be all that's needed to bring peace to our personality system. If it's just an emotion that we're noticing as a problem and there is no external action that's needed, let the part know that you can handle your feelings now, that there's not a problem when you experience them, and emotions don't have to overwhelm your system if you don't want them to. This can be really challenging to do at first, and it'll probably feel a little strange as it's not something we're used to doing, but the more we practice, the easier this will become and the more effective the skill will be for you. This is the process we call re-educating, and the words are the words of a healthy adult or a good parent that's trying to teach an emotional child how to do things in a way that will promote emotional growth. Many parts of our personality system are not used to this type of communication, so you may feel like giving up and walking away at times. Try to stick with it and return to the first step in the process if you're finding it difficult to stay on track. The final step in this exercise is to negotiate with the part to create a committed action moving forward, to obtain its permission to allow you to demonstrate this new way of being. This action may be internal or external, depending on the situation, but it is important to create one, regardless of the circumstance. The committed action you take is a symbol of growth. It allows us to create something new and grow with each new achievement. It is all about meeting the unmet childhood need. What is it that this part of you is protecting? What is it that your system needs? Remember, achievement doesn't mean you stop doing what you're doing. It's just another stop on the journey of your life. We continue going in the same direction, regardless of the achievements that we have along the way. Creating and then carrying out a committed action is also an opportunity to acknowledge progress. Give yourself a proverbial pat on the back. Pay attention to the positive event, which is the only way to develop continued internal motivation. Negotiating with a part may be quite simple at times, something like creating a plan to physically do something to bring you back in line with your values and beliefs, or asking an emotion to soften off while you complete your current task. However, sometimes it may be a little more complicated, particularly if you're feeling the emotional reaction begin to overwhelm your personality system. If this is the case, take a step back and bring the DBT stop skill back into play. Try going to your internal safe place again, or using the skill of mindful breathing to bring you back into the current moment. Once you feel that you're ready, go back to the beginning and start the process again. With practice, this will begin to get easier. Only with practice will this become a valuable tool for your emotional well-being. In the PDF at the bottom of the website page that's connected to this video, you're going to find a worksheet that you can use to develop your use of the RAAVEN skill, along with an example of what the RAAVEN narrative can look like. Remember, Use your mindful journal to highlight specific parts of your personality that require this type of work for the stories that they're attached to. Create your own mindful meditation specific to the needs of your system. Use planning ahead to build mastery to practice this narrative every single day. Make it a part of your morning and night routine to increase the probability of it landing with the part that's in need of hearing these words. Imagery visualization is key to making changes, especially for the process of making them permanent. So take your time and notice any unrelenting standard that you may have about how fast this process is supposed to work, as that will only hinder it in the long run, making it slower overall. Remember, this is only meant to be a short and concise narrative. It's intended to be said in about 30 to 60 seconds in the moment. So if you find that this is taking too long, you're probably using this as a journal, and that is not the intended point. As always, if you like the content of this video, please subscribe to the channel and smash that like button. Turn on those notifications to get all the latest from me and the Liberation Place. If you want to know more, come join the live online groups that I facilitate each week for free on Zoom. I'll leave a link to more information about those groups in the description below. I hope this video gave you an idea of how we can use the RAAVEN skill to develop the new internal dialogue we want to use as often as we possibly can. Thanks for watching. See you again soon. Take care, be safe, and be well.